the way from Massachusetts, US, we have the beautiful Courtney Steinau. And I had this introduction planned for her, but we were just chatting before this episode recording actually began, and I was telling her my story of where I've been and how I've kind of just followed this intuitive path throughout life, and she just was like, this is exactly the work that I do. And you know, her title is such as we could say is an intuitive spiritual coach. But Courtney's beautiful personality is more so about connecting women back to themselves and guiding them to that journey of tuning in to the intuition that is already within them, to guide them to this, you know, place that they can start to respond from, to be their most beautiful and enigmatic and accomplished self. So without further ado, I'm going to let the beautiful lady speak for herself and tell her story of how you even came to be on this path, because I know that we already have so many stories to share, like without really barely knowing you, but I'll let you take the stage, girl.
I know. Yeah, thank you for that. Thanks for having me too. I so appreciate it and love being here. I think talking about love and self-expansion and emotional and spiritual liberation is one of my favorite topics to talk about with other females. So I'm so pleased and honored to be here and take up some of your space and time. And anyone who's listening, thank you for sharing your space with me.
Happy.
Thank you. Yeah. So, yeah, I think you summed it up well, that I work with women and anyone who identifies as a woman to turn back inwards and listen to their limbic system, their nervous system, their spiritual and soul systems, because we're made of energy, and our energy will tip us off to what we need next. So what got me here is a long journey that I think I always knew about, and I think I've always been collecting sort of that karmic or soul resume of
I love that.
yeah, of like just like these little things that are all going to come together to be able to help people on the whole and be able to speak to what they're going through because I've experienced it. So I was in business, and even in business, I was part of I was a culture club chair, like the head of a culture club in this big like Fortune 500 company, and I was a change agent, and I was someone who rallied other people and directed other people, and I was a doula and still am a doula, after having a child who I have a little boy who's 4. Um, it changed my life even more dramatically, and realized that I want to put all these pieces together of a doula, of a Reiki master, psychology, like change agent, culture changing, and do it on a grander scale, kind of like you were talking about before we came on, and help people in a larger sense feel so, so, so deeply safe and loved, because the universe provides an infinite, absolutely infinite amount of love. And if we can tap into it, then incredibly magical things happen for ourselves and each other. So it's been a long journey, but I'm here and so happy to meet people and help them and coach them and be support for them. So that's a little bit. I don't know what kind of gaps or holes I left.
We will dive into your karmic resume along the way. And I absolutely love that term, because I've kind of called it like database gathering at times, and share similar things. I feel like I have so many pieces of papers in things that I've been certified for, but I just also feel like, no, I already do that. I don't need the paper for it. And it's been like a remembering. You know what I mean? Like, and that's
I do.
100%. Just by your body language was like, amen, sister. Like, why did I pay all this money? Like, I already knew all of this knowledge, but yeah, we do go for this search of feel like life is like a searching to come back to our real self. And I think that's what, you know, all of the practices that you would engage in, all of the teachings that you would engage in. But something that I did take away from what you said, which is probably quite relatable for your clients and the people that you bring in, is that you both incorporate this attending to the basic need of certainty, and you say like safety, because when we talk about energy and intuition, it can get really like airy fairy and woo woo. And I'm so do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I think it's sort of a pendulum that it can get very woo-woo, as you talked about. And that's something that I've been face to face with in presenting myself as a spiritual coach or an intuitive coach, of what kind of certification do you have, you know? And I feel like I have that certification of pain, of becoming, the certification of experience. And so there's that woo-woo-ness about it. And then for those that have lived through it, there's a heaviness about it because you feel everything that has come with it. So I feel, and my brain is just going off in so many different directions right now. So you might have to rein me back to what the original question was, but just
I'm a Gemini, I'll get there.
Me too.
Oh, of course you
Me
are.
too. Me too. Yeah. But I think that there is a basic need for safety. And when we're not feeling safe, our nervous system, you know, and our level of cortisol, adrenal glands are really, really fatigued and pushed to the edge. And then we don't know how to take care of ourselves. And I don't just mean nutritionally or, you know, financially, but deeply emotionally, and getting back to that self that you were talking about, of how do you and how do I figure out what I've always known, and how do I peel away all those pieces that have been layered onto me through the years, and how do I do it safely? And for me, with my clients, that's one of the first things that I do, is set up an exchange in a language that we both speak emotionally, to understand what that safe energy exchange looks like, because for a lot of people it hasn't been safe. So I don't know if that answers your question, actually, because I'm just going off in a million other directions.
Well, that's all right, because I've got a million other questions. I'm not sure
Fantastic.
if it answered it.
I love
just
it.
Get our viewers and our listeners
we'll just
go
keep
like,
going.
what are they talking about? They are just vibing off their own intuition, and I love it.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Because I think there's this side of me. It happened yesterday. I had like a whole bunch of people that I was interviewing. I had this like third body experience of like, Lauren, just listen, just be present, because we're so caught up in what's the next thing. Like I could sit here and go, I've got all these questions for you, Courtney. Or it's like, actually, why don't I just let her speak and see what rolls from there? And if that question still remains when she's finished talking, let it roll. But that's probably something that, you know, speaking about, we're always so focused on the next thing. Like this doesn't allow us to step into that need of safety and security, and to really like soothe our system. So I'd love for you to kind of speak to me of, maybe give an example of like when a client comes in, and speak about how you do actually meet them where they're at, and how quickly that bond is formed, and then how quickly you form a management plan from there.
Yeah. So I am a big energetic person. And I think it's one reason why I was able to successfully become a doula, is everybody's fear is different, and everybody's, where the fear comes from in their body is very different. Uh, so I'm able to meet people energetically in that space. And I'm also really dedicated to being strong and present and non-judgmental. So one of the first things that I do in my sessions is we calibrate our breathing together.
Yeah,
for
nice.
my sake and for theirs. So, because I take on some of their energy, and if it's hyperactive or underactive, or really angry or fearful or overjoyed and excited by a huge milestone, something that they overcame, I just want to calibrate and get back into that same space together so we can meet and just breathe together and
Yeah.
experience each other's presence. And it kind of gives me the feeling of like both of us being a fawn in the woods and just grazing together in the sun and being part of Mother Nature and a child of the earth and the universe, and knowing we're just here together and that's all we have to do. That's all we have to do right now. And once we get into that space, then I'm able to do some cleansing, whether that's energetically or through different movements, body movements,
Mm.
to clear space and energy where they are and where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And then I sit deeply in my space and welcome them. And usually just naturally, um, whether they're consciously ready for it or they have to work at it, there's their energy, and it's usually from an inner child place, a place of like that small child of maybe wonder or trauma or fear or like curiosity. Like the energy comes to me first, and from there I'm educated and communicated to about where to go and what to ask and what to address
Yes.
and figure out what kind of work needs to happen. And I'm a huge process person. So I have a very much like bigger feminine energy, like create, process, flow, like vibe. And it's
Mm.
hard for me to like pull in the masculine energy. So I feel like for some that can feel really, really safe because it's that mother energy, that big sister energy, that female, like
Mm.
I'm strong, you're strong, but I'm not going to overpower you. So then we just flow from there. Depending on the container that they're in, it might just be a few short sessions. It might be a larger container.
Mm-hmm.
It might be something short, like 5 weeks, or a larger container of 3 months. So I can really, really get in there and help them kind of peel back the like rust off of their soul and scrub themselves clean and like clean it all up and make them feel shiny and new and who they have always been.
Babe,
So
like just
that's,
love watching you. Like, without video, it would be such a different thing. And I'm sure I'd still pick it up through your voice. But for anybody who's watching the YouTube version of this, just watching like Courtney's body movement of going through the process of self of taking on a client, it's like you literally embody it all. I can almost not explain it, but like what you were saying of like even though you're in this completely like water element and feminine, it still comes across as like the goddess and the warrior. And instead of overpowering, it's like you're empowering and you're really like, I love that you don't take on people for like a set amount of time, or like it's so different between people because ultimately
yes,
you shouldn't want to have a client forever. And that's how I kind of think
yes,
of my people.
yes.
Yeah.
I want you to grow out of me, because
Right.
yes, I'm at a certain ceiling and I've worked hard to
Mm-hmm.
get here and I love the space I'm in, but I know eventually I'm going to get to another ceiling and I'm going to hit another capacity.
Yeah.
And I want the same for you and for anyone else. I want you to say to me, like,
I'm done.
no offense,
Yeah.
but I think I
I'm
need
good.
someone in a different dimension now, like a higher dimension or a different plane. Like I would be so excited, and so yeah, I'm of that same mindset. And
That's cool.
yeah, yeah. So I wonder if I could just ask you, if I don't want to derail anything,
No,
but I
go
just
for
wonder
it.
whether it's been for clients or folks that you've had or people that have come to you in comments, like what's some of the bigger things that they inquire about when it comes to emotional security or safety, and has that come up, or you know, or resources of the type of person that they look for and what their journey is like? Because I know you talk to a lot of people about their journey through all sorts of walks of life, so I'm curious, in your little neck of the woods, what
I
that's like for
love
you.
that. It's so interesting having the virtual microphone turned back on me, but I I think
I'm sorry, I can't help but do it because I'm so curious, and I'm like, I want to know who you are. Tell me more. Tell me more.
Oh, well, I think if I was to just speak
And if you don't want
completely,
to, you don't have to answer any questions. Totally safe space. Like it's okay.
I feel you. I feel like you're just a complete soul mama slash sister slash
Oh,
just, yeah,
yay.
it's cool. And I feel
Okay.
completely comfortable, but I also like, I just want to make sure that I answer this again, like we were saying, with that grace and the wisdom as best as I can without overshooting myself or
Sure.
undershooting myself. So like with my approach with people in general, it's been a journey of learning to unjudge myself, and I come across now to people of all
Mm-hmm.
all walks of life, and I truly walk into any moment of like, I literally do not judge people. I don't care what they look like, where they've been, what they've
Yes.
done. And so something
Mm-hmm.
that I think has been common across the board is like when people chat to me, it's like I haven't felt like I've been able to say that to anyone. And if I really nut it down, it's giving the person a chance to be listened to without being spoken over. And,
Oh yeah.
and I think being listened to and having your story told in your own way, because you can't change what has happened in all of those years before, and so many people are defining themselves from their past versus going,
Mm-hmm.
I have all of this power that I could use for good. And so it's like just being there, kind of, I love trying to find that inner child part of them again, like that last time that they remembered joy, or that last story that you see those little parts of their face light up. So it's like I'll dive into those points of them. So it's like
Oh, I love
listening, and
that.
yeah, I feel
It's
like
so beautiful. It's so wonderful. It's brilliant. Yeah, because I think after a while we're conditioned to, oh, I can only speak for myself in my life. I think it was the path of, go to school, get a job, get
Mhm.
married, have a kid, like do the
Right.
things, and some of that childhood, like joy and magic, is conditioned out of you. And the only way I knew how to experience it, like in my 20s at that point, was like, get drunk, like have like random sex with random people, and
Right.
smoke weed. And it didn't feel like it was, there's some funny memories for sure, but like overall it's not sustainable, it doesn't feel good. And I ended up hiding a lot of myself, and not because I did it purposefully, but I did it because I thought that's like what I was doing. I got married, and I loved my husband deeply and dearly, and we're still friends, and he's still really important to me. We separated in 2019, and it was that conditioning. There was that unconditioning. I forget
Mm.
the phrase you used, a little bit of like unlearning maybe, and
Yeah.
realizing like I came out of the closet again, and he was the first man that I had been with, and I fell in love with his soul.
Yeah.
And I'm with a female now, and
Amazing.
yeah, it's a trip. It's a trip of like
Totally. I was
I
not
was
expecting that. And I love that
I
this,
wasn't either. I wasn't either, but I wasn't expecting
wow.
it when it happened, and then I wasn't expecting to talk about it,
Yeah. It's just
um
flowing.
but again, that's that I think is why some I can relate to what people are going through, how it's so scary to like lift up the covers of really what they're going through, because it disrupts the world, your community that you're in, or your family, your tribe, whatever you want to call it. And but the beautiful part, once you do lift up the covers, once you do clean yourself off and you become, and it's I was about to swear, but I don't know if
I
that's
swear, so go
okay.
for it.
I was just gonna say that it's fucking empowering and it's fucking
Yeah.
beautiful. And you have this incredible fucking strength
Yeah.
and faith in the universe and God and the unknown. And you just follow these little breadcrumbs to your happiness. And you're like, okay, this little morsel is mine. And if I, and then you
Yes.
get back to like, to who you were and to that childhood joy and of like, I'm completely uncovered now. And at first it feels like a snake shedding its skin, but then
Right.
you're in your skin that you're supposed to be born in. And you're like, this feels really fucking good. Like, this feels so delicious and yummy to be me. Like, I like it.
And
Like,
then
let
you
me find
also
more
get
of
to
it.
like go through that process again of like, I think, it's remembering that we can't always stay exactly the same, because life is about change and growth. So it's like you go through this little cocoon process each time, and each time you form a different pattern of a butterfly when you come out of it. And it's like, oh, how can I fly around here, and like what can I learn, and who can I share things with, and who can I bring under the covers? Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, who can I
Yeah,
bring under the
yeah.
covers with me, but it not be hiding? Like, let's have it this more as a
Oh, I
slumber
love
party.
that.
Yeah.
Of like, who can I bring into this private space, this beautiful private
Yes.
becoming, but that it's not hiding, it's not
Right.
shame, it's not guilt, it's not fear.
Yeah.
It's just like, let's hide out. It's like when you're baking a cake for a surprise party. Like, who are you going to
Yes.
bring in to bake that cake with? And
Totally.
then like
Who are we
you
going
get
to
the
eat
big
it with?
reveal. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Who do we get to party with in that space?
Oh,
So,
yes.
yeah,
Like
I love it.
redefining party, because I think I can relate. I think we've probably got quite a similar story in so many areas that we'll probably message about for years to come. I feel like our friendship is just
Right.
going to evolve, but
Yay.
it's so I don't even know where I was going with that. I just wanted to say we're friends.
Party.
Party, that's it. It's like redefining what party is, of like, it doesn't have to be this thing that you're, again, looking to the outside going like, hey, everyone else is doing this. I think that's what I was told to do, or this is what makes me feel like I belong. It's like, what I love about you and what you do is that you remind them that they're already enough. So anything that they do moving forward is a choice. And it's like, I want to go
Yes.
to that party because I am confident in myself, not to feel confident about myself.
Right. Right. And I'm confident in the decision
Mm.
of whatever you're choosing to do, and that you don't need any more explanation other than the exchange of words within mind, body, soul, and your higher self and your guides and guardians and angels and sacred ancestors and everyone that's looking after you. Like, that's really all you need to talk to. And everyone else is just, part of the journey. And then you back to the judgment, being so free from judgment, you can
Mm.
look at the exchanges of people. I mean, the exchanges between people of like you observe them more instead of experiencing them more, but by observing, you're also experiencing them deeply, if that makes sense. Like,
Yes.
they're you're just observing them as humans on this earth that have agreed to be in this timeline together in this earth on this plane, and just experience their story, but not experience it like in your body or like take it personally any longer. I don't know where that came from or what I was talking to, but that just
I
flowed,
love
so
it.
I went with it.
I love it, because we do. We look to people that we love and that we want to be around, and we can connect to that. But when we're triggered by something or when things aren't going great, I more see that as an opportunity to learn more about myself and go, hey, like, what quality do they have that I don't, or that I've disconnected with? And whether it's it might be certainty, or it might be anger of like, hey, are you actually not using your voice to express how you really feel? And so it's like not seeing them as getting angry as a bad thing, but going, wow, I'm really not comfortable with conflict. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, more of a signal rather than an experience. And that, yeah, exactly. That observation is a signal for something that they need, want, or desire, or something that you need, want, or desire. And that's kind of like that idea of how we're all mirrors and reflections of each other, because their experience and your reaction to it is a signal to something that you need to work on. So you can say, thank you. Thank you for getting so angry with me. And thank you for expressing the hurt by me, because now I know, or thank you for hurting me, because now I know that this is something I need to work on, whether it's in that sort of inner child, id, ego, parent, adults, multiplex, or your chakras and realigning energy, or, releasing layers of I haven't quite figured out the words for it, and I'm sure there are, but it's that point in when you're ascending, in the point of ascension, and you're increasing your frequency. There's a point where the things that happen and the things that occur in the 3D world be, are sort of happening around you, and you're watching it, and it's not happening directly to you anymore. So then you're able to help yourself and others without fear of like getting wounded. I don't know if that makes sense.
For people listening, I think a way that I might just describe that to them is it's
Yeah.
kind of like thinking about witness consciousness of like, I'm able to step back and realize that life is happening for me and not to me. And when we can be that observer and the seer, which is everything that I love talking about in terms of yoga as well, we can really step back. And it's not about you step out of your body, but you go, I'm stepping out of reaction, and now I can actually see this objectively, because we know that when I look at you, Courtney, I could tell your story the way I see it, and probably with more clarity, because I have distance from it, and I'm able to observe different parts of you. Whereas it's like when we exist in our three-dimensional body, we can get so caught up in all of the things that we define as us. But it's like our mind isn't exactly all of us, or our emotions isn't exactly all of us, and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I love how you point out as well that stepping back isn't dissociating. It's not a dissociative experience where you're hitting the ceiling or regressing psychologically, or you're avoiding. It's like you said, it's stepping back a little bit, and having faith too in yourself and your higher self and consciousness and the universe of like, there's a lesson here, that this is happening for me, and this is a redirection or a lesson or an experience that I need to learn from or gain knowledge from. And not, when if your dad yells at you, or your girlfriend breaks up with you, or your account gets overdrawn by $50, or whatever the case may be, it's all there for you. So if you can get through that lesson and experience and learn from it, oh my gosh, then you're just your vibration and your frequency is leveled up, and you're sending these messages to the universe of like, I don't want that thing to happen again. So what do I need to learn? And I'm telling the universe, I don't want to be overdrawn again. I don't want to be yelled at again. I don't want to be broken up with again. So what do I need to learn to be okay with it when it happens next time? And then when it does, you're like, oh, I know how to get through this.
I love that you brought that up, because it's not about drawing in, I need a trauma story, or I haven't had anything bad enough in my life to create this story. Because I think that's another thing as well. Some people think that they need this huge story, or their story is terrible and I don't, there's not a place for mine. But it's remembering that we all define discomfort, or we all define not feeling enough in different ways, like based off maybe like
Yeah.
our love languages, or like the way that we were brought up with our family and friends, and if we're fortunate enough to have that in our life. So yeah, I
Yeah.
love that.
And I'm glad you brought up too of that the level of trauma or something. I don't know about how it is, in Australia, but I think in America especially, we're not trained and built to take time for ourselves and our mental health, which
Yeah.
includes our physical health. It's just go, 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 pound
Mm.
away. And so we almost have this like badge of honor if we overwork ourselves, and we have this like competition for trauma and competition for severity in how hard we're working, or how like self-deprecating we can be,
Yeah.
whether that's verbally, emotionally, physically, financially. It's like, oh, well, look what everything that I went through. And everybody has something that hits them hard, to your point, that it doesn't have to be a big T, that big trauma. It can be little T. It can be like little itty bitty T. Like maybe being overdrawn by $50 is super traumatic for you. And
Right.
that's okay. That's good. Let it be traumatic and feel it,
Yeah.
so then we can talk about it, and then it's not trauma anymore. Because once the language of trauma doesn't have a voice for you, it has no way to
Yes.
talk to you, and it has no way to exist. And if it doesn't have a way to talk to you or exist, then it's
Mm,
not there anymore. And then
babe,
we get to celebrate.
yes. Like this is why I love chatting to people like yourself, and it's remembering that there's so many different ways to communicate spirituality and intuition, and when it comes back to this really relatable sense of what, like, you and I are both just humans, and while energy or third dimension and those words can be like, what are they talking about, or like I'm just a
Yeah.
body or whatever, those moments where you just said, like, of what you just said before, just kind of reminds you that, oh, like, I feel like anybody could relate to that or that example, and just to go, oh, okay, that does make sense on a very like
Mm,
um educational standpoint.
I love that. I'm so glad. I
Yeah.
think because the more relatable it is, the more inclusive I feel for people.
Yeah.
And everybody is welcome. Everybody is welcome. And everybody is welcome to feel supported and loved and feel kind and human
Yeah.
and be able to be vulnerable. And in our vulnerable is where we grow and our strength. So if it's relatable, I know that's something that I work on, for myself, is being relatable. I will be completely candid here because I don't know, I've been compared to like a hurricane or a thunderstorm or like a tornado or just like this powerful, intimidating energy. And it's something I work on, is to try and be relatable, for people. So, because I'm just as fucking human and messy as the next person. It's just might have a little bit more practice in stepping back, or experiencing things differently, but I'm ready to pass the baton and teach and be a soul companion through all those lessons.
I just love that those like analogies that you gave, my mind automatically went to like water extreme disasters of like, tsunamis and whatnot, but it's like it's still water. That's feminine, and it's that
Mm,
divine feminine, or that that power
I
that it
hadn't thought about
yields.
that.
But it's like not
Yeah.
just female, and I think that I like to emphasize that as well. It's like it's that overarching thing that we call Mother Earth. It's like mother
Hmm.
is such a it's such a strong word, which brings me to what I've actually been wanting to ask you about.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah. So like, because you're such an intuitive soul, and I can see yeah, I can see that all of the work you're doing is just revealing that for yourself, but stepping into motherhood, like even going
Mm.
through pregnancy to then having that child leave the space to then stepping into a new, again, if we use the little butterfly analogy, how has that process been for you?
This is again one of my favorite topics. I love talking
Yes.
about it. I love talking about pregnancy and motherhood because first, I feel super humbled by the ability to be able to create a child. I think that's an absolute incredible gift. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't thank God and my higher power and the ancestors that came before me to I'm so grateful and thankful for my son, and the ability to create him, because not everybody has that, and I know that it's a precious gift, and I think it's absolutely lovely. And so being pregnant was wonderful. It was hard, but it was wonderful. I remember my father-in-law at the time said, he's like, you are the only pregnant woman I know that is like throwing up in the bathroom and being like, this is so beautiful. Can you believe that I'm throwing up because there's a baby inside me? Or like gagging because I have such like heartburn, and I'm like, I
This
can't
is
eat, but it's
amazing.
so amazing.
You're the best.
Like, because it was just, I'm like, this is such a short period of time where he's going to be safely in my body, and I'll know exactly what he's feeling. And I mean, not exactly, but I think there is a bond before baby comes out, earth side, where it's true, like, you know, your baby, if you allow that. It doesn't happen right away for anybody. So whoever's listening, if you've just had a baby or you're pregnant and it's not there, it's okay. If you're not abnormal. But if you allow it, or if the simpatico is there already with your baby, like, you get to know them before you do. So when you have your child and the doctors are like, do this with them, do that, you're like, hold on a second. Like, I've been with him for 9 months, or her for 9 months, or 8 or 8.5, or longer, or whatever. Like, I got this. Like, I can figure this out. So I leaned into like the faith of motherhood, of instinct. And I think that's really was the big catalyst to make all of these changes in my life. And was him being born, like, that I realized, like, there's so much that I'm not paying attention to myself, that I need to listen to now, if not for my sake, for his. And then from there, I just let him lead the way. He chose to be on this earth right now, and my job is to just create a safe space for him and teach him the rules of being on earth. And so he has some manners and isn't a complete asshole or anything like that. But I kind of let him lead the way. If he thinks he can do it, all right, I'll support you, let's do it. Like, you think you can climb on those bunk bars and not break your leg, like, I'll be the safety net, but try it, let's see what you can really do, and then go from there. But I let him lead the way and tell me what he wants: more sleep, less sleep. I mean, I give him a schedule, obviously, but like, and we're big on talking about feelings and letting it be okay that he can't have gummies before dinner, because for a 4-year-old, that sucks. Like, I want my gummies or chocolate. Like, this is awful for him. That's important in his little world. That's what he has, is gummies. So I love motherhood. It's hard, but I love it. It's
I
my
feel like
favorite.
it's the work that you do. It's like literally living the lifestyle of intuition, not just with yourself, but everyone that you're working with. But he's probably your little catalyst, and he's going to be your teacher moving forward, as will your partner, because I'm sure she'll bring up things that challenge you, and it's like, what? Like, I don't even know what the intuitive energy would be like with having 2 women in a household, like with cycles bloody synchronizing. Oh man, that's a whole
Holy
other can of worms.
Some days, let me tell you. But then, you know what, there's the beauty of like sharing love songs and crying to love songs together, and she is like so attentive in that female energy way, and there's that exchange of feminine energy, and our dynamic is like, and that's another catalyst of change, that I was intimidated in my 20s by butch females, and like, I was like, I can't handle that. I don't know what to do with that, and that's not accepted, and it's not okay by all family and friends. But coming out again, I was like, that's what I want. Like, I want that dynamic.
Yes.
And so we balance each other out sometimes, and sometimes we just stir the pot for each other and anything in between.
Where do you
So,
find that your like polarity comes through? Because when we, when we talk about relationships and stuff too, this has
yeah.
gone on a complete different tangent, but it's like having feminine is awesome and that can be great, but then it's like when there comes to like that intimate relationship side, there's, this polarity of masculine and feminine. Like, when do you step into your masculine and her in her feminine? I'm not sure if you've ever thought about it in that way, but, and like, feel free not to answer it. I'm curious.
Yeah, that's such a great question. Um, I feel like we have talked about it, and she and I talk about everything, which is one of the reasons why I fell for her so deeply, is because she's just completely open, even about the ugly, gross stuff that's really uncomfortable. We'll talk about it,
Yeah.
or cry about it, or yell about it. But I think there's a first level of just like, if you were to look at us as a couple, she has like the shorter hair and, you know, black tank top and, men's watch and men's clothing and things like that. And I'm more feminine.
Yeah.
But then we allow each other a lot of space to flow for both of us. And I'm so glad you pointed it out, because I'm really excited to go talk to her about this afterwards and be like,
Yay.
babe, did you realize that we do this for each other? She'll probably say, yeah, I
I do.
noticed.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah,
I'm
Courtney,
doing
you're
that.
real slow. Like,
Yeah. Because I always have to learn things on my own,
me
learn everything on
too.
my own. Yeah. And then I bring it up as if like it's this huge novel idea.
Like, I
And
created it. It's like, no,
yeah,
you were created, Courtney. Settle down.
yeah. Like, did you know? And yeah, I get it. So she'll probably be like,
Yes.
yeah, like I knew that. So I'm excited to go to her afterwards and be able to tell her, like, we actually provide space to flow through our masculine and feminine energy. And I think there's some balance too, of just naturally she wants to be more masculine and dominant, and
Yeah.
I want to be in the more feminine, submissive,
Yeah.
but we both allow each other to be empowered. I hope I allow her to be empowered. I know she does allow me to be empowered, and then just kind of flow in between. And it depends what we're doing too, you know what I mean?
I
So
know what you're
like
saying. Yeah.
it depends which room we're in the
Yeah, that's
house.
it. It's
So
like, might be an off recording thing. Who knows? Who knows where this is bloody going to? Gemini's in the house. This could
exactly.
get wild up in here. You're
Right,
great.
exactly.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah.
I love, because I've also done my doula training in Ayurveda,
Oh,
like
okay.
Ayurvedic doula training, and I just wondered if you actually had a doula with the birth of your son or going through that process, because I can imagine it would just be, if you had the right person, it would just be the most amazing experience.
Yes. I
Oh,
highly recommend a doula.
yeah.
Like highly. Yeah, I had a doula at my birth, which was one of the reasons why I became a doula. Like, she was the main reason,
Uh-huh.
honestly. She was incredible, and I felt like every woman needs a doula. So I need to become one and then be a doula for every woman. But that's
Yeah.
impossible to be
I
a doula
felt,
for
yeah.
every woman.
It's like every lady needs
Um,
to have a kid and experience this. I'm like, hang on, I'm
yes.
not there yet. I haven't figured out a
Yeah.
system.
Yeah. So, yeah, I did have a doula, and the f- as soon as one of the biggest memories, we still keep in touch now. And one of my biggest memories was just as soon as she arrived, she just tucked her hand in mine, and we walked hand in hand down the birthing hallway and
Mm,
through contractions, and she was just so present with me, and she was just so there, and there was no need to explain. Or and we had also met several we met twice, I think, or once or twice beforehand, and we had talked about preferences and things like that. So, like, where I prefer not to be touched, and sayings that she should just completely stay away from,
Yeah.
because some of that can be triggering. But we really didn't know each other that well. But we just kind of dove right into it. And I'm so thankful. She was a support for my son's father, and me, and I highly recommend it. So it encouraged me to be a doula.
Babe, I love that you spoke to that, like, no words need to be said in a way. And I think this is a quality that I look for in people to try and embody myself, because I get so excitable and I love words and communication and this whole thing that we're talking about of being relatable. And often that's where people like to be met. But I think it's a real challenge for me, and something that I want to lean into a little bit more is, like, what you were saying about her. She didn't feel like she needed to say anything, but you just felt this, like, complete safety. You felt the love, and you felt the intuitive connect between you two, that it was like, she's got me and I trust in this process, even though I barely know what the hell's happening.
Yeah. Her confidence to not talk about it, I think, gave me confidence. So if
Gave
you're
you
doing something
permission, maybe.
yeah, like that, like she just held my hand and I was like, we didn't talk about it, or and if there's things, I don't know, I can't think of any examples now, but even in our personal life, with friends or family, sometimes, like, there's this need to explain away why we did this or why we said this. And the confidence in just being and doing without the explanation gives the other person confidence to just be and do. And so
Yes.
that's sort of the exchange that happened. And that's my favorite when that happens in life with people.
That is just like, that is put such an example in my head. It's really touched me in the feels. I think I'll definitely write that down in my journal after we chat here. So thank you for
Yay.
bringing that up. When you get those little light bulb moments, you're like, yes, this is why I'm here. Like,
Yes,
like,
of
so
course,
good.
of course. Sometimes it's 3 a.m., sometimes it's 7 a.m. on a Sunday, sometimes it's 7 p.m. on a Saturday,
Look,
which are one and the same.
It's like, and if you want us to figure it out, please do not ask us, because we could barely figure out making this time align. But I'm so glad we did, because this has been an absolute treat.
It has. And thank you for your patience with that. I was like, oh my God, is she like, I like flashes of like live from New York. It's Saturday night. I was like, oh my God, is she not going to have like a space? Like, I'll throw myself together and get this done. Like, if I said I was going to do this, like is everyone watching? And like, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
I
good.
was worried. So
No.
I'm glad
And then
this
you get
worked
on
out.
and you're like, oh, she's just a dork. I love it. Like, she's just
No. But I'm a dork too, so I don't know. Like,
I mean,
maybe
it's
I don't see
endearing,
it.
right?
Yeah, I'm just like, but our dorks are cool though. They're
Dukes
like
are
in,
actually cool.
right?
That's what I was saying. I was like, yeah, you could all be
Yeah.
thinking that I'm bagging myself out, but I'm actually like, no, I'm a dork and I'm amazing. So
Yeah, bragging about how cool you are. I get it.
That's
I'm in
what
that
this
space
episode
too.
was all about. So we're talking about intuition, but also segue back to me, and I'm amazing. And
Let's, Lauren, let's. There's space for that. There's room at the table. Let's talk about how wonderful you are.
Girl, so we obviously share a very similar, like, soul level bond, and I'm sure you've done a million studies and have have done lots of trainings and have had many teachers in your life. I'd be curious to see, like, if there's been any consistent teachers that have stayed with you from, like, right from the beginning of life till now, or whether you have like some really solid ones that you draw upon for, like, embodiment of the qualities that they emit.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's an amazing question. Yeah. Well, the first two people that pop into my head is my birth doula. Her name is Kelia, and some of the qualities that she expressed, or like some of the ways that she was supportive when I was going through birth, are things that I tap into, just that strength without explanation, the okay with being without explanation. And I had a professor in college that pulled me aside, and at the time I thought I was getting in trouble, but she was like, "You're the real deal, you're gonna do big things." And I was like, "Okay, weirdo." And like, but that just stuck with me, and I was like, when am I gonna do the big things? When am I gonna do the big things? And so when I had
You
my
are the big
baby,
thing.
yeah, yes, that's what I realized. Exactly. Yeah. And I think like, so I also had a, a a therapist from when I was about 19 until 27. Her name was Emily Hunter Rupert. She has since passed away, and she took so much time, care, and effort to ensure that my potential wasn't like blown out, that like the candle didn't get blown out. And I didn't lose faith in myself. And so it wasn't necessarily the specific words of teaching, it was more of like the act of somebody pulling me aside and telling me how wonderful I'm going to be. And it was the act of her making changes and sacrifices in her practice to ensure that I could keep going. And like the practice of somebody stepping in and holding my hand confidently are the the feelings that I learned I enjoyed and want and need and desire. That how do I give other people those feelings? Because we all have sort of a nuance, like even if we are both speaking English, you can speak different languages, but that feeling is going to be there, and that feeling is universal in a lot of ways, of like happy, sad, mad, scared. Like, so what do I do? How do I give people those feelings that I felt in those key moments in my life, so they know that they're special, that they're important, that they're fucking meant to be here, and they're meant to be loved, and they're meant to be cherished and become who they're supposed to be here.
Wow. So like, I know that I can't remember whether we were speaking about this off camera before we jumped on, because it feels like it's already been a lifetime already that we've been chatting.
I know, right? It's true. It's
so
true.
amazing. But like the teachers that you're bringing up, and the value or what your needs were, and still maybe are something that you reflect on, is like this being seen. Because so often we're like in the hiding, and it's like, even, you know, it's being seen when you go to therapy, or like, and it's not that you have to go and tell everyone, oh, I'm doing therapy, but it's being seen by the right person at the right time. And that's something that's obviously extremely important to you. And I think, you know, that once we start to learn to see ourselves and put that mirror back on ourselves and go, I am okay with what I'm looking back to here, that's when you can like authentically and really make progress with your clients too. Like, because until that point, if you're doubting yourself and if you're not confident to turn the mirror on you, like, to continually deflect is not going to get you any further in your big thing. Like, you know, whatever your big mission is, it doesn't have to be defined by a job, but it's just your mission here on earth, whether it's to serve women or to serve yourself.
Yeah. That's so huge. It's so funny. I hired a coach because I knew if I'm gonna actually, can you see me okay? Do I need to put a light on? I feel
It's
like the sun is setting
dark.
here.
I'm enjoying the backdrop there. It looks like kind of
Okay.
cold, but yeah.
If you could see me, and you can see me wiping my allergies and my nose.
I can
which
see your
again, I
tissue more
apologize.
than I can see you, but it's like
I should have put a light on, but you know what? I can resolve this.
Yes, you can. Go girl. I do want to see your face.
Yeah. So what was your original question?
we were talking about like how
Oh,
it's
I
like being
was
seen, and but I don't know if that's where you
um
were going from with teachers and
yes.
whatnot.
So I knew that I I wanted to start this business of becoming an intuitive coach and be an entrepreneur and take on clients. But I knew I needed help because I didn't know. Thank you. Um,
Yes.
I
She's
should have done that
amazing.
when I
You should have
started.
just like done a little, and then it just like, oh my God, she's
Oh, if I had planned
magical.
that better, I should have. But I didn't. The clap on, like clap
Yes,
light, or just
totally.
like snapped my fingers.
That's it. And be like, and mic drop. Um, I thought about turning on the light and it actually just happened. She's
Yeah,
amazing.
exactly. You too can get that deeply in touch with your higher self
Yes.
and manifest light just like God.
That's it's like a little sign out. It's like, and if you want to be able to learn how to do that, find my details below. And
Yeah.
ultimate sales
Which
pitch.
are which is at
Yes.
woman_becoming on Instagram, just so you know,
Like
if anyone's paying
I'm joking,
attention.
but I'm not. It's in the show notes, guys.
Yes, exactly. But I hired a coach because I knew that I knew my blind spot. I knew that I was going to get scared. I knew that I was going to be afraid to be vulnerable in front of people.
Yeah.
And I knew I was going to be afraid to be seen with my gifts. And some of that came from family trauma because when I separated from my husband, there were certain family and friends that's like felt like oil and water. Like as soon as I made that decision, they like backed off. And there were some other things that were going on with COVID and natural distance and whatnot, but um coming out again and all of that stuff. So I was like, how, if I can't, how am I going to be so vulnerable to this world of internet people? Like, how am I
Mm,
going to discover that entrepreneurial voice, but also the coaching voice without losing my identity and who I am and becoming like a not so real image of myself anymore? So I hired the content queen, Rebecca Ives, and she has coached me and supported me through this. And one of my recent calls was about being seen and like some of the reasons why I didn't put out offers or have trouble putting out offers about like the containers that I hold for people are like, my own issue of like being seen. And it's ironic because that's what I want to do for people, is allow them to be seen. So it's like me learning that lesson first so then I can teach that lesson to others. And it's that universal initiation, that divine initiation. And once I go through it, but that's exactly why I hired a coach, was so I could be in a safe bubble to be seen and then cry about it and be embarrassed and make mistakes and have it all be okay, that no matter what happens with my business or through Instagram or Facebook or other places, other things that I'm doing, um I feel okay being seen and confident, and that I'm changing and growing. And that's what we all, like we said in the beginning, I don't know if we were already on or not, but just of like, I want my clients to eventually grow out from me. And she
yes.
wanted the same. Like she's like, eventually you might grow out of this, and that's wonderful and lovely. So I don't know if
Yeah.
that entirely answers your question or not, but
No, it was
that's what I
amazing
got.
because like, yeah, no, it's so cool because we don't want to show our flaws initially because we're like, oh, this is how I could help people, but we actually have to go through it and you have to ride that wave through it. And it doesn't mean that you get through it and you're done with that lesson. Like you can go, oh, like I really nailed that, or I've accomplished this, or blah blah
Right.
blah, and then you can be triggered by it again. And it's like, this is why having our network and like our village of people, whether it's women or
Hmm.
families or clients or your partner or your kid, and just to reflect to us something that I think you'll love is like, I heard someone say on a little like live video one time, it was like, have someone who asks you what is true. Like is, or
Wow.
that you can ask that to, like, when you're feeling that
Yeah.
way, tell me what's true. Because
Yeah.
we get so lost in what isn't true, and we follow that train of thought and get like,
Oh,
we can go on a
yeah.
friggin' road trip on that train of thought. But when someone goes,
Yes.
tell you what's true, it's like, oh, it's like that is the express train to the truth, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And being grounded from that and then refocusing
Yeah.
and letting everything else just sift and drop away. And it feels so much lighter. You're like, oh, I don't even have to worry about that other stuff because it's not true and it's not real and it's made up. The cool
Totally.
thing about I think that's the cool thing about spirituality and this journey is like you get to make it up. So if you believe that you're incredible and you have gifts to offer, then guess
You
what?
do.
You are incredible and you have gifts to offer. And then
Yes.
you're sending that signal to the universe. And then the universe is like, oh, wait, she's on. She's ready. Okay, here, let's give her all the gifts and magic. Like, let's reveal it to her. Like, she's ready for it now. And then it comes.
Mhm.
And you're like,
Ugh.
this is awesome.
This is
Like,
like, why didn't
I want
I
more
ask
of
for
it.
this when I was like 2? Like,
Exactly. Like, this is pretty amazing. Like, it's
it
like
is.
bigger than the whole fake it till you make it thing, like, because the
Oh,
universe is gonna provide for you. So you get to be like, I'm amazing. I'm
yeah.
wonderful. I have all this good stuff, and the universe will say, yeah, you do. And I'll show you how.
You're a Brene Brown fan, aren't you? Just honestly, by if we're anything the same, I feel like you would have to love her content.
Yeah, you know what's funny? So, and
Go
you were
on.
asking about teachers too, is like I hope I'm not like totally blowing up my own spot here, but like I'll get into people for like a smidge and then I'm like, okay, I get it. And then
Aha.
and not like I get it, like I'm over it or tired of it. I'm like, okay, I understand. Like, and okay, I get it. Like
Mhm.
Mel Robbins or like Glennon Doyle, Brene Brown, like I think Ram Dass is like the only person who I'm like, I don't get it. Tell me more. Like,
Yes,
like
he
if
gotcha.
you know him, yeah, like I'm like, okay, tell me more. Um, but
Aha.
and I remember being in my 20s too and going to school for psychology and being in therapy and I get now what my therapist was saying then of like, you get things. I don't know how you have this knowledge, but you get things. You just need to learn the language to use around them.
Boom.
So I I know Brene Brown, but I don't know Brene Brown. Like
Aha.
I like what I have read and what I've watched and what I've listened to,
Yeah.
and she's magnificent. Um, but I don't know a lot about her.
Yeah. Oh, I love
So
that though. Like, it's like, again, what we're talking about of kind of remembering, but you know, some of the, I think what those people reveal is like the way that they can deliver a lot of the same information that we already know within ourselves. It's like that's
yes.
what I connect to, of like their story or their delivery. And it's like, if it's a little bit more like casual or just showing me how to look vulnerable or how they look vulnerable, and it's like, oh, that's actually like, I love that. I love that they can do that and present, because yeah, the knowledge is such, like, while she particularly goes into shame research and whatnot, it's like
Mhm.
that can be studied by anyone, but it can't be embodied by everyone, and they can't go through that same story that she did to get there.
Yeah. And no one can tell it the way she can tell it or the way
Yes.
that Lauren, can tell your version and my version. And that's why
Right.
we need everybody who's here, is because we won't hear it the same way. It'll be the same message, the same definition, but uh, different people can say the same words and it can impact you so differently. So that I appreciate that
So
and
like,
think it's needed.
with the people that you do have as mentors and role models, like, if I was to say, is there a recommended book or resource that for people listening, it can be like people related, it can be random related. And I also have another question, because you are the way you are, do you have any plans of writing a book?
Oh, it's so funny. I have always wanted to, um, but I feel like the Gemini in me is like pulled in so many different directions, like,
I
and it
feel
means that
you.
I would have to, yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think if that's meant for me, then I'd be open to it. And I don't know that I'm asking the universe for that right now, but I
Yeah.
would be open open to it. Like if the time's right, it'll happen.
Yeah.
And I would be, it's something that I have always thought about. Um, is that something that you ask everybody that comes across, like just based on their stories and
Not the written book, more so. I only say that because I just feel so similar to you, and like I just want to see what her answer is here. But like I asked
yeah,
them
yeah.
what's a recommended podcast or a book, or just something that would be of complete value to people listening, of like, oh, I really love Courtney's story, like what does she read, and they can
Mm,
kind of go, oh, I probably have a similar learning style, and I can look at that book, or like listen to this when I'm on the road and go, oh my God, that's amazing. So
yeah.
it'll connect them to you more, but as like connect them to
Yeah.
your teachers too.
So I think 2 people, actually, I take that back, 4 people.
Yes.
Um,
Hashtag Gemini.
yes, thank you, exactly. Would be Amy Poehler and Tina Fey. I have
Oh
listened to and read their
yes,
books. They're
yes.
incredible. Like they are so down to earth about their
Mm,
gift and the way they came across it and worked hard at it and shared it, and they're just, I'm like, you guys are human. Like,
mm,
thank you for being human about all of this fame and fortune. And then Glennon Doyle, Untamed, I have read and listened to that book. I actually started listening to it, and then I had to buy it so I could actually highlight and read it, because it goes back to being the wild women and like the women that we were born and who we became, like who we were born to be, but with all of this conditioning became some other version of ourselves.
yeah.
um and then lastly, Sarah Blondin.
I've heard that name before.
Sarah, sweet sweet Sarah Blondin. Oh, she's a gentle gift of a being from heaven, and
Mm,
she's incredible. Like she I use an app called Insight Timer,
mhm.
and she has meditations on that, and she also has a book. Um, and I go back to her meditations like 1,000 times. And she's so loving and soft and sweet and gentle, but really firm and knowledgeable and powerful. Like,
Mm,
and she's inspired me to write guided meditations.
yes.
So I have some on my Instagram page because I did a 30-day meditation challenge. So recently
Mm,
I did some, and I have some there to listen to. They're about 20 minutes. Um, but then she's inspired me to write specific guided meditations for like specific chakras and energy shifting in my body and around specific feelings. So as I continue this journey, I'll continue to drop those and deliver those on my Instagram page. But those are the folks that I go back to regularly. Um,
amazing. So, like, with a
yeah.
little segue there to wrap it up there for real this time, um,
Yeah.
where can actually people find those stories? I will include it
Yeah.
in the show notes, but we were joking of like, oh, hashtag at women underscore becoming, but actually it is that.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, at women becoming, and it's women underscore becoming.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah. come
Cool.
hang out with me, talk to me. I welcome anyone and everyone. No silly questions, nothing to ever be embarrassed about. Only pride and joy for having the courage to reach out to somebody new. So very safe place. And again, so happy to share this space with you, Lauren. It's been a delight. It's been so fun.
It's been absolutely awesome. And like, if anyone's listening to this or watching this and just going, this is so much fun, I want to be a part of that. Like, it was so easy to connect with Courtney, just like, when you have that soul connection with someone of like, oh, it's just literally like my sister or my long lost friend. And,
Yeah.
like, if you resonate with her story and her energy, like, reach out. Like, I think it's this thing of, we can get so hidden behind a screen, but then we can get so
Mm-hmm.
expansive behind a screen as well. And when we do things like
Yes.
this, it's like, oh my God, like, you could actually help people in Australia. And it's like, you're so not limited to Massachusetts and the US. It's like it allows us to
Yeah.
really expand. So I appreciate you for just
Thank
being
you.
such an open and beautiful book to share your knowledge, wisdom, and your awesome humor, which just matches like my humor completely. I'm like, yes,
Oh,
I
good.
love it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for creating this space and being available to people to reach out to you. And it's a joy, and I'm sure we'll keep in touch. And I'm always here, even with the 12-hour time difference.
Totally.
So
Yeah, 100%. Messaging might be more our thing, but
thank
I do
you.
love seeing your
I
face.
think so, yeah. Thank you so much, Lauren. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you.
This is awesome. I appreciate you too, girl.
All right. Talk soon
Talk
and be
soon.
well. Take care of yourself, take care of others, be kind to yourself, and be kind to others.